Are we there yet?
No, we're not there yet, Jova, because this game refuses to end. Okay. Basically, everybody, we're going to finish day 3 today. So hopefully, after this, we'll be able to finally get back to, the theater, the cliffhanger we were left on, 15 hours ago? Ugh. Anyway, let's keep going.
So, I'm just going to ask this, Sharon Ribs. Do you like Abby at this point?
No.
And the plot has failed, because, let me tell you, the end of day 3 and what comes after, the plot really hinges on you liking Abby.
No, it's not even just that, Jove. It's more so the fact, it's also the specific relationship between these characters, but I'll bring it up when it becomes relevant.
Well, not only that, but it's like Jeremy John said. A lot of this plot hinges on the player liking Abby for there to be nuance or any sense of tension in later parts, and also in regards of when you pit Ellie against Abby. Like, the idea should be something like what the MCU Civil War movie did. Have it be that both sides are on somewhat equal grounds, You can agree with other, but, you can see where both sides are coming from.
The issue is that, again, instead of making her a complex character, he decided to make her a saint. And again, you should not make your characters likable, you should make them complex.
You know what? Literally the only reason that she lets Ellie and Tommy live is so that the game can portray as a good guy, because if she had just killed them right there, that is outright villain thought, but yes, that shrewd villain thought, to get rid of any loose ends. Literally the only reason that the plot has Abby act so noble is so that they could try and say, oh, she did the right thing, letting them live. And it's not so much she did the right thing, it's that she was an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Again, how do you torture and kill a man who clearly has loved ones and not expect those loved ones, who you tortured and killed him in front of, mind you, not to come after you, Abby? Well, honest question, Shurai. Let's say, Shurai, I got a question.
Yes.
If you did what Abby had done in front of someone's loved ones, would you have expect that person's loved ones to come after you, or would you think that letting them live would be A-okay and they would just go on their merry way?
I would expect them to come after me, what else?
Yeah, it's I'm sorry, but Abby is just a crap character. You should have just had her be a villain, and then have the reason that Ellie and...
You know what they could have also done, Jova? They could have not brought with them WLF jackets that told Tommy where they were from. If they had actually been smart and took regular incognito clothes, this plot wouldn't even... But again, we have to have the characters act stupid so that the plot can happen. So.
Like I said, the characters are arguably more stupid on Abby's side of things. Ellie's side are mainly more reactive, and the only dumb one I'd argue was Dina for coming when... she had an idea that she was pregnant, but at the very least, as soon as the group finds out she's pregnant, they go into motions to try and get the heck out of Dodge after they've collected their party.
So you see, Dubs, the moral here is that, according to Abby and her group, if you're gonna murder someone, make sure to bring with you stuff that will identify to other people where you're from. Because totally what you want after murdering someone is people having the means to track where you live.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what else this means, Pedro? Going back to the whole whether or not Isaac was the one who allowed Abby to do all this. Okay, if Abby's lying, then Isaac's not as dumb as I take him to be. However, if what she says is true, then Isaac kind of ended up dooming his own group by letting Abby go on this revenge squad. Because this, in turn, is what leads to a lot of his numbers getting called by Ellie and company. Which will then lead to, well... what's going to happen later in the plot.
Isaac is not a very smart person, it seems.
Congrats, Isaac. You let someone go on a dumb revenge squad, so now you can get killed too.
Again, my guess is it was supposed to be a reward for her 4 years of faithful service. But at the same time...
I think the problem was that the timing was terrible. Dude, You're planning essentially genocide of your enemies, and yet you let one of your top soldiers go off on this revenge squad. Now,
Not just one of our top soldiers, Jova. He flat out said her top soldier. You know, she's the only one who's she's the most physically fit of everybody in the WLF. So
okay. Remind me. How long after Joel's murder did Ellie start chasing after Abby?
it was right after, like a day after, 2, 3 at best. I mean,
Okay, yeah. So I'm pretty sure that by that point in time he was.
Oh no!
was-
Yara, no! All right, now pay attention here, because there's a lot of bullcrap in this scene.
A lot.
Oh no, Yara died.
Well, no, she just got shot.
You know what that means, right, guys? Day 2, we spent an entire day getting stuff for her to survive. It was a waste of our time. Good job, Neil. Good job.
So now Abby is literally going to turn on the WLF. So,
All right, and now, guys, a confrontation between Abby and Isaac. Who will win?
Good question.
I need you to hear me out.
You put down your gun. He can pretty much just shoot you now.
He saved my life.
By the way, we'll deal with you back home.
He's not one of them, please.
Abby, move.
God damn it, he's just a kid.
Oh, now you care if they're just a kid.
3 seconds to get away.
Hypocrites.
Hold on. Wait for it.
I'm not fucking moving.
And Isaac's dead.
Hey, Yara killed him.
Yara killed him with her last breath.
So now what?
Hold on. I will cover it, Joe, but don't worry. I just want you guys to listen to this whole thing.
Love, we need to move.
Here he goes.
Come on. Those were your fucking people. You're my people.
Sorry, game. You haven't earned that line. Oh man.
I'm sorry, but. And this is enough for Lucky to
Okay.
really drop it all. So
Okay, so that was so much bullshit in this last 2 minutes that I have to take it one by one. Okay, first off, Yara dies.
Grab what you can.
Yes, Yara dies randomly. So yeah,
Did I miss something?
No,
yes,
Yara was.
you missed what is quite possibly the worst cutscene in the entire game. Basically, Dwips, Yara got randomly killed. So that entire day in the hospital we spent fighting the Rat King to get medicine for her, it was all a waste of our time. Thanks, Neil.
Congrats.
Congrats, Neil, for making us feel like our time was wasted, because that's what we love in video games. Anyway,
For sure, it
second
has
point.
that on the padding scale.
Shirai? Jova asked you, how is this in the padding skill?
I mean, I don't know, because I don't know how long it's going to take for us to get to wherever we're going now.
Sure.
Well-
They literally killed Yara.
No, remember, Shirai.
Or are you talking about the previous scene leading up to this specific...
I don't think you're understanding our point, Shirai. Allow me to recap things for you. Remember, this is day 3 right now that we're in. We spent the entirety of day 2 with Lev taking us to the hospital so that we can get the necessary stuff for Yara's operation on her arm. Remember? Also, we could save her.
Yes.
Also, we could save her life. And now she gets randomly killed by a WLF.
Well, yeah, it's a waste of time.
So it's a waste of our time. So day 2 was a waste of our time.
This wouldn't be a problem if these two scenes happened much further away from each other. Like, if the hospital thing happened a lot earlier, and then this happened, now in the latter part, I'd be more forgiving.
Okay.
But
Second point.
it's literally like less than a day apart that this has happened. It's
Second point. Yeah, Isaac. This is, as Young yet put it very well, this character that shows up and just turns out to be a whole lot of nothing. So he gets randomly killed by Yara, and that's it. They bothered to build up this really scary WLF leader that tortures people. Because remember, we had that scene where they clearly showed him torture someone. So
let's not forget, he wants to commit genocide and will even be willing to kill kids. Even though he seems like a benevolent leader, he's secretly a terrible person.
But then they just, again, this game's incredibly frustrating fetish of randomly killing people out of nowhere.
I guess it's to show that anyone can die, and sometimes death isn't. And I guess
sure,
in real life, death isn't this glorious thing that fiction paints it out to be.
Exactly, Dwebs. I've already addressed that point, Dwebs. That's the thing. Yes, here's the problem. That doesn't translate into a good story. Second, even if it did, this game is just way overdoing it at this point. This is like, what, the fourth time they've done this in this entire game?
Let me put it like this. As far as we know at this point, the formula is that if you're not Ellie or Abby, chances are you're probably just going to get shot. Like, that's something, it's happened so much that it's practically the formula of this game. Hell, even if you aren't killed, something terrible is going to happen to you. Hence the darkness-induced audience apathy. What happens to Ellie and her friends is so constant that they are practically the chew toys of this game. It's not compelling, it just comes off as outright silly. Almost like the Looney Tunes.
So it's like in Mission Impossible 2 where they overused the mask out.
Sure, I guess you can say that. Okay, little tip for this gameplay set piece, or rather sequence, sorry. Don't bother fighting these people, because there are a lot. You can do it if you want to. I mean, you have probably a lot more ammo than you'll ever need. However, for the sake of pacing, because this game is already going on for too long, I recommend making good use of the water, because as long as you're diving in the water, they can't see you. So basically, just swim your way throughout this entire thing and go straight to where the door of the exit is. If you can't tell where the exit is, go into the accessibility settings and turn on the option that allows you to put in an arrow telling you where to go. And that's what I recommend doing it. If you're like me and you're getting tired that this game is far outstayed its welcome, use that to get things going, because I don't blame you for being tired of this game by this point. Third point. Folks. Hold on, Joe. I have a third and final point. Final point. Notice that terrible, unearned line that this game had, where, of course, Lev is shooken up by the fact that the WLF just killed his sister, which is understandable. And then Abby tries to tell, look, Lev, we have to keep going, otherwise we'll die too, or something. And then Lev goes, those were your fucking people. And then Abby says, and I quote, "You're my fucking people." Like, so, you haven't bothered to develop the bond between these characters enough to earn that line.
Well, I get what she's trying to say, but sorry, go ahead, Liz.
Well, Pedro, technically, he was her fucking person, as if they were fucking each other earlier.
Okay. Alonso, this basically shows exactly what me and Jove have been talking about. They're trying to have Abby be the new Joel. Much like Joel became Ellie's surrogate father, Abby is supposed to become Lev's surrogate sister. Except, here's the problem. Ellie's mom was already dead way before the first game started. In here, they outright mercilessly kill Yara just for the purpose of giving Abby this surrogate sister arc. That is, it's terrible.
It's like I said, Lev and Yara were literally just tools. Both used to elicit sympathy for Abby, but one literally used just to torture, and have bad things happen to. While the other is literally just there just to show, oh hey, she is Lev's strong building stone, only to have her be shot down.
Exactly. That entire 2 minutes is so terrible and destroys so much in its wake that it's astonishing. That I cannot believe that not even one person, two people wrote that, directed it, animated it, and we know that there were people who voiced concerns about this, but anyone who got concerns we already know got fired. So, but Neil and Ailey wrote this, and they turned to each other and went, "Yep, this is genius. We're going with this."
Oh, it gets even better though.
Talk about like I have never seen such a quick fall from grace from a talented writer. Jesus Christ.
I get it.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah, that's the thing, Pedro. Is it gonna, as like I said earlier, is this gonna cause a bloody snowball effect that's happened to other people before? It's like, you know what? He was actually never a good writer, and here's my points.
Well, Dwebs,
I mean-
Dwebs again. That's an entire other debate altogether. My argument is that he has talent, but he needs people to be there to tell him no. The problem is now
That's
he
the
does.
thing, though. Evan Wells is supposed to be that guy, but
Well, yeah.
he's not doing anything.
Well, that's what we were
That's
conveying in our skit from the earlier part.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So, okay. It's time for
I will
us
give it
to
this.
move on.
Yeah, I will give it this. Gameplay-wise, I do like this part. First of all, this right now the WLF and the Scars are at war, meaning they're so focused on fighting each other that most likely they won't see you coming. So you can very easily sneak past this if you know what you're doing. Basically, most of them are just way too busy fighting each other to even notice you. So you can easily go through the grass and just get through. And after this, we're also going to have an Uncharted set piece, which, as just put it, is out of place in a game like this. But at the very least, it's fun gameplay. So at this point, I'll take it.
Question:
Yes.
where did the zombies go?
We dropped the zombies a long time ago. Neil doesn't give a crap about them anymore. Jova's basically Jova's been basically complaining about that throughout this entire playthrough. Webs.
I mean, that'd be like if there were a Professor Layton game, but then 3/4 of the way through, there's suddenly no more puzzles.
Well, Layton Brothers didn't have puzzles.
Right?
Layton Brothers was more of a detective investigation
I mean,
game.
that's a spin-off.
Yeah.
That's
Layton
fine.
Brothers
It's
is
all
a
about main
spin-off.
games.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, and, you know, this would have been a good moment to have some of the infected as well.
What is war but a
Well,
horrible
Jova,
fate?
I guess to be fair, you can make an argument. This is the Scar Island. Maybe they've already gone through a process of exterminating every quote unquote demon on this island to make sure it's secure by this point. Maybe.
As fine as that may be, though, this just brings the point up that the game really has a notable lack of infected focus.
No, not Matthew. So,
okay. It's time for me to do a bit of a recap on Abby's character here. So, Abby pretty much pulled
Give me
a
a quick
Joe.
recap then.
Well, okay.
Amir,
Like a mini-
no, Amir, no, not Amir.
Hey, you know, Gabe, maybe you should have had more segments of Abby actually interacting with her fellow WLF members instead of just it being a fraction of day one for us to care.
Yeah.
Just saying. But yeah, okay. So Abby betrayed the WLF without pretty much a second thought.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jova. Thank you. Yeah,
Here's the
but
thing,
go ahead.
The game suggests that she has gotten to know these people for 4 years. Hell, she has
Not suggested,
friends in
Jova. It
there.
flat out tells us. It's literally told to us. Not suggested.
Pretty much,
It's
yeah,
comfort.
4 years. 4 years. She's known these guys for 4 years, and yet she betrays them out without a thought. Mind you, when Joel went against the Fireflies, he didn't know them that well. Now, like some people have said, in a way, everyone can look like the bad guy to somebody. Yes, so to Abby, Joel looked like the bad guy. But I'm going to argue that in some ways, Joel could look like the good guy. Let's imagine the Fireflies did manage to get this cure going on. They probably would have weaponized that cure, and they would have, in a way, turned the civilization to their own benefits, their own needs. Like, no way would they have just given up this cure willy-nilly. So, from some people's perspective, Joel may have saved the world from the Fireflies becoming the rulers of it. Hell, let's say that they had killed Ellie, and yet the cure didn't work. Oh, there goes your potential cure. They really weren't thinking this through. So like I said, Joel arguably does have some good reasons for doing what he did.
Sean, no.
Can I mention that? Yeah, I get it. It's war, but I mean, even with the addition of all the screaming and that, it's very. I mean, it makes the game even more bleak than it already was.
Again, you'd think that these guys would have been prepared for war, but I guess not in an apocalyptic setting, even though that's how a lot of people acted. Now, granted, to the story's credit, Isaac did in fact bring all remaining forces of the WLF here. But don't worry, I will pick apart why that was a dumb decision a bit later. Back to Abby, though.
Well, that's
Like I
never a
said-
good idea because just it's like that scene in it's like that scene in Dark Knight Rises where for some reason Gordon sends literally every cop in Gotham down this underground to find one person, and they all
Yeah.
get trapped under there. Surprise, surprise.
Like I said, I'll get back to Isaac later. Now, like I said, there's a good reasoning for why Joel did what he did. Let's compare that to Abby. Okay, Abby, we get it. You've gotten to know this one Scar. Your defense is that he's a kid. Problem, you were all for killing the kids
Yeah.
of the Seraphites. So
There's literally
you're
a
not
line in
gonna
this game, for those who
have to-
forgot, there's literally a line in this game where she flat out says, it was those kids' fault. Come on, we can't do... So, but yeah, go ahead.
And now her first excuse is he's a kid. That's a terrible opener. Second, she tries to say he's not one of them. Yeah, not really a good case. Why not just say, hey, I've checked this kid out and he's legit. She never tries that. She just goes for the cliche excuses, which, mind you, wouldn't really make it for a good excuse to Isaac. But, so what's her response there? She turns on the WLF, and now for all we know, she's murdering friends of hers. Like, again, when Joel went against the Fireflies, he was not per se on good terms with them. Didn't know them. Abby supposedly, well, no, not supposedly. She does know these people. She has known them for 4 years. But it's like, kill away. So here's what I ask. If her friends, her named friends, mind you, conveniently none of her named friends are amongst them because they're busy either being killed by Ellie or, as we saw in Manny, did get shot by Tommy. So, yeah, Abby. Suddenly Joel doesn't seem as bad a guy. Like, at least he had the excuse that he was protecting someone who he had known for nearly the corporation of a year, mind you. Actually, wasn't it even possibly more than a year? Yeah, whatever. He had gotten to know Ellie for such a long amount of time. Abby got to know Lev for less than the equivalent of 3 days, mind you.
So
And
yeah.
yet already she is betraying her group for him.
So yeah, Abby just gave Levo a gun so that he can keep shooting everybody while Abby steers the horse towards their freedom.
Now, folks, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay segment, because now I'm really about to tear into this game's narrative.
It's actually a pretty fun gameplay set piece, if I'm going to be fair. It's very
It is.
Uncharted-esque in its execution. However, it also amplifies that the game is on full-blown 100% self-indulgence mode right now, because all this day, again, and I have to mention this again, this third day of taking place on Scar Island, this is literally nothing. That has nothing to do with the game's theme of the cycle of revenge. It has nothing to do with Abby's arc, because they could have very easily continued Abby's quote-unquote surrogate sister arc without resorting
Is
to...
Lev even here to take revenge? Sorry to interrupt, but...
Lev is right there, Shira. Right.
yeah, but I mean,
right.
are they here to take revenge, or, like,
No.
I don't know.
No,
We're really just trying to escape.
the entire purpose of this thing. Honestly, I don't even know what the
Just to show
purpose of
that
this
what
thing.
hell?
Really, to be honest.
So we're just burning down the island, basically.
Pretty much. Basically, Shroy, this is a segment where everyone, except our main characters, dies.
Yeah, it's basic. Yeah, the game at this point is just once again ramming in our faces how bad the cycle of revenge and violence is. We are, even though, like I said, we get it, game. It's not a complex message. Okay, this game is so completely in denial of its own shallowness.
Okay, and now here's where I really tear the narrative a new one. So let's talk about Isaac here. When you first meet him, he seems like a benevolent leader, but turns out he's really a terrible guy. So, as you may have recalled before, we figured out that the Seraphites were mainly going to war because the Wolves, went against a treaty of theirs. Now, as we've known, the Seraphites are pretty terrible people nowadays. But they weren't always like that. As Lev and Yara pointed out, originally the Prophet, some random woman, originally raised them to be a peaceful society here. That is until she was killed. And guess what? Isaac was the one who killed the Prophet. Why? because he and the wolves thought that killing the Seraphite's leader would, get the group to disband or, fall apart. Apparently, none of them got the concept that the prophet could be made into a martyr. Oh, what a shock! A bunch of the village elders made the prophet into a martyr, which allowed them to then warp her teachings into making the Seraphites the terrible group that they are. So, Isaac, in trying to get rid of people who weren't even really his enemy, made a brand new enemy. Which, mind you, they had a peace treaty with eventually, but the wolves violated the peace treaty. Why? The game never explains it. I guess they're just terrible people, and they wanted war.
Hey, Dwebs. Brother, my brother, tell me what we're fighting for. We got to do this war. We should love one another. You see how bad fighting is, dude? You see how bad it is to violence is?
I mean, my God, I thought Pokemon the first movie banned that whole message.
Oh no, no, that movie's a fucking choir boy compared to Neil.
Essentially, but that's the thing. The game tries to have all these badass segments without thinking of proper motivation for the characters. Why was Isaac such a douche to the Seraphites? Like, again,
because he's evil.
So, this is where I said the Seraphites are technically better than the wolves. They're still terrible people, but they were warped into terrible people thanks to the wolves killing their leader. But wait, there is in fact more. I'm not done yet, Shiroi. I am not done yet. Back to Isaac. So Isaac in his infinite wisdom decides to cast genocide on the Seraphites. So what does he do? Well, he knows that his forces have been whittled down. He doesn't know by who, but he knows that. He knows that his two top commandos, Abby and Manny, are AWOL as far as he knows, and, well, dead in Manny's case. He doesn't know about Manny being dead, but he knows that they're not there. But he chooses to charge in guns ablazing anyway. So, then he goes in cold-cocked, and then just gets randomly killed by Yara. So, you know what I've noticed? Any point that the game tries to bring up what could be a compelling villain, like, say, Abby herself, or, Yara and Lev's mother, the Prophet herself, or hell, even Isaac, they're either killed off-screen, killed in the past, or, oh, you're not supposed to hate Abby. She's actually just as good or bad as Ellie is, even though really the game fails at doing that. Every single time it seems like we could have a potential main antagonist, the game cheats us out of it. Like,
But Jova, don't you see, Jova? The main antagonist isn't a human. It's revenge itself.
Never mind the fact that revenge is a morally grey thing, but, whatever.
So, back to the Wolves' brilliant plan here. The result is that not only do the Wolves lose focus when Isaac gets shot, now it's complete chaos, which will lead to the Wolves, believe it or not, being wiped out. That's right, the WLF, that big faction that we've been touting this game, do in fact get wiped out because of the idiocy. So, to sum things up, my God, the research has come back.
Angel! No!
The research, it's all printed out before me. The results are positive. You guys are all morons, and you deserve to die, and you will in fact die. God, I hate this narrative. I really, really hate this narrative.
Wow, Jova, Jova, I never would have got that.
I would also like to mention that this 13-year-old, however the hell old Lev is, kid, is right now in the middle of all this violence and just lost his sister and mom, by the way, and somehow he's hanging it pretty well, all things considered. I mean, you'd think a child would be, traumatized and incapable of doing anything.
This is one of those parts that would benefit from, in-game dialogue a la Uncharted,
Exactly.
I know, right?
Well, mind, I just said. Well, mind you, I just said before, this game isn't Uncharted, so.
Well, we don't have to bring up Uncharted waves. The first game did this. Why isn't this game doing it?
Like, okay, and here's another thing. Why is it that literally all it takes for Love to trust Abby again is just that one little scene where she puts her hands on his shoulder, and he immediately is okay with her, despite the fact that, like he stated, it was her group that killed Yara.
But it wasn't her, and Abby's perfect.
Like, look, I could get him maybe eventually coming around, but you're telling me that there's no animosity between him and Abby right now, all things considered? When meanwhile, Ellie did not talk to Joel for a long segment of time just because the two had a falling out, mind you.
Not just that, Jova. Even in the first game, there was that bit. There was, of course, friction right at the beginning, and even after that traumatic event where Ellie was forced to kill David to save herself. There were consequences where she was legitimately not even being herself for a while. It was not until she found the giraffes and gained hope again that she started to get more over that trauma that she went through with David. You know, like this is the big problem. They're trying to make this relationship the new Ellie and Joel. The problem is these two characters are nowhere near as interesting, and their relationships, quote unquote, development, because I refuse to call this development. This relationship is literally being crowbarred on our faces. It's like and that's why and now I can properly reference what I've been saying throughout this entire playthrough. I refuse to call Abby's quote unquote surrogate sister arc a character arc, because this thing. Character arcs have build-up. There's zero build-up in any of this shit. There's no logic to it. There's no, like, seriously, it's literally nothing. This is pretty much like a David Cage game. David Cage's games expect you to just feel the emotions and ignore any kind of illogical flaws or lack of proper development. This is the same thing here. This game expects you to just feel things without it making any sense, you know. So I still stand by my point that people who enjoy David Cage's games and people who enjoy this game as well are people who tend to enjoy things based purely on emotional levels and don't ever think about the logical implications or anything about how if relationships are believable. As long as the game has sad moments and plays sad music and shit like that, they'll immediately start you know those kinds of YouTubers that play games like that and they cry at everything that's a sad moment regardless of whether or not it works. Like it's for this game is for that kind of people. You know, the people who just cry and feel emotional over everything that plays sad music and has big drama, big melodrama in it.
It's pretty much this game's formula. Have terrible stuff happen to the main characters or stuff to people affiliated with them, and that somehow makes things groundbreaking. Even
And
though
now-
in reality, it is really just shock value.
And now another boss battle against a brute. And now Abby has to sacrifice all of her equipment to save Lev. But that's okay because we're not gonna need the equipment starting for now anyway. So.
Really, you're wasting time just to try and kill the trans folk instead of...
Well, Jova, he's incredibly transphobic, so obviously. Remember, Jova, this is remember, Jova, the primary idea is that Abby killed an entire tribe of transphobic people. That's how awesome she is. That's how. She's a. You know what she is? Now that I think about it, she's a superhero. That specializes in saving trans people, I guess. I mean, seriously, this is an entire thing based on her saving Lev. That's the whole thing about us liking Abby. But you see, she saved this trans boy. I don't care. Sorry.
Guys. If you're not huge fans of narratives that try and throw in messages first and then story later, you're probably gonna hate the 2019 remake of Black Christmas.
I don't know the context.
Not familiar with it, so I can't speak for that.
Basically, I haven't seen any of the Black Christmas movies myself, but
Neither.
what I've heard of the 2019 version, it ticks a lot of those boxes that you guys don't really.
Well, okay, I can use another example
Okay.
of a game that we're already very. Go ahead.
just want to point out, yes, Abby saved a trans boy, so she's for trans rights. You know, in some continuities, the Joker is also for trans rights and supports gays, but you know what?
He's still a villain. Yeah.
Still a villain,
Also,
yeah.
can I? Oh, sorry.
A villain can have standards, but they're still a villain.
Exactly.
As far as I'm concerned, Abby is still a villain. She's just convinced that she's the hero of her own story.
Hey, Jova. Hey, Abby, you want to know how I got these cars? I mean, look at his face right now.
No, you got this one.
Go ahead, Shirei.
I was just gonna just attach something onto what you just said. For the sake of the audience, also, as somebody who has actually discussed Lev's purpose in the game with people from the community, they think it's stupid too. So, you know, where do we go from here?
It's not even a matter. It's not even a matter of whether or not you're part of that community, Shiroi. If you just take an objective look at this and just judge it based on storytelling value, is this a well-told story? It's not. It doesn't matter.
But I think it helps in situations like this if you go out of your way to talk to people who are actually, you know,
sure,
like have you know, very personal attachment to stories like this.
Oh, sure.
I did do that, and yeah, it's stupid.
Sure.
A lot of people, just because a lot of people on the internet will use the argument of, you know, unless you're from this community or that community.
Oh God!
You know,
yeah, we know this.
For the sake of the audience, I did go and speak to people from the community, and there you go.
I've always hated that argument. This wasn't meant for you, so you can't criticize it, so shut up.
That's the thing, Shiroi. That's the thing, Shiroi. I talked to my gay friends about this game, because remember, PlayStation is the big console leader in my country. So Last of Us Part 2 is very well known. Like my gay friends think the gay relationship between Dean and Ellie is also badly done. So that I can say that too. There you go.
Lauren Lev's home is gone. Anyway, I might as well bring up this interesting bit from TV tropes. Unfortunate implications. The handling of the game's LGBT cast has been criticized by members of the
LGBT... Hold on, Joe. I have to point this out. But look how nice Abby is, Shira. See? Look at this.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway.
Anyway, go on, Jova.
She's Jesus Christ in video.
I am Jesus. I am Jesus.
Yeah, whatever.
But yes, Jova, go ahead.
Unfortunate implications. The handling of the game's LGBT cast has been criticized by members of the LGBTQ community who were formerly positive about the game when Ellie and Dina's kiss was shown at E3 2018. In the game proper, the handling of Lev especially has been criticized due to Lev being dead-named Lev being dead-named and abused throughout the story, with his sole purpose being to make Abby look sympathetic. It especially doesn't help that the game was released during the month of June, which is recognized as LGBT Pride Month.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so Neil's created a hate crime, honestly.
It's like,
I'm telling you.
It's like I said earlier, in the context that we're given, it's the evil sick people that are doing the dead naming.
The problem is,
I get that. It's just everything else that's the problem.
Okay,
I'll explain more on that later.
Let me put it this, Twibs. The problem is that the actual LGBT character in question is literally just there to suffer and make the main hero look good.
I'll say it right now very
like
quickly. Their suffering is the suffering that's written here is insincere.
Pretty much, yeah.
The dead name of him, it comes from the bad guys, but it also only exists to make Abby look good. The character is a prop and nothing more. If they weren't that, and they actually did the whole Joel and Abby comparison proper, then I'd be forgiving, like completely forgiving of the bad guys dead naming Lev. But it's just so insincere. It's not to show how bad these guys are. It's to show how good Abby is.
Yeah,
And
remember right after they dead name Lev right after we're done killing them, immediately Lev asks, "Did you hear what they called me?" Yes, I did. Do you want me to ask me about it? And she even asked, "Do you want me to ask you about it?"
let's do a recap here.
That's the whole point of that conversation happening right after it, Shiroi. The dead naming, and then right after they show how Abby doesn't give a crap.
So let's do a recap, folks. When it comes to LGBT representation, we have a very blandly written couple between Dina and Ellie, which is really going to go off the rails writing-wise later, or just literally a prop character in the form of Lev.
It's a disaster. It's a fucking this game story is a big massive dumpster fire. Jesus
really
Christ.
Is. And guess what? It still is going to get worse, Shiroi and Wibs. Even though I just had a big rant to give.
Well, Jeremy, you've been saying that. At the
You see, Dwebs. For
That
this
is
game,
literally
Neil
it,
decided
though.
to. You see this for this game. Neil decided to challenge himself. Can I make a 25-hour game where every hour is worse than the last?
He succeeded. By God, did he succeed? Because believe it or not, what we're about to come up is a part where a lot of players actually either quit the game or personally died.
What do you mean by that? Exactly?
But yeah, before we close this part, as a final finish to my point, yeah, this is exactly the big problem now. You're my fucking people. No, sorry, you haven't even come close to earning that line.
You've known this boy for like 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. And like Jova said, she betrays the group she's friends with for 4 years at this point. Shira, question.
Yes.
Would you betray your years-long friends for a random kid you kind of like, but you've only met for 2 days?
I mean, no, but I mean,
I need a lot more proof.
Yeah,
It makes no sense. That's the basic point of it. Yeah,
And like
it makes literally no sense.
Terrible. She never once says,
That's what.
"Hey, I actually know this kid is legit." She just resorts to the "he's a kid" or "no, he's not a scar." Not any of "hey, I actually know this kid."
It boils down to this. Youngya's final line when it comes to describing this game in a nutshell is perfect. Whereas the first game used its themes to create believable and likable characters and complex characters, this game does the opposite. This game uses its characters as plot devices to force its shallow message on us, basically. Like, it's literally, again, it has nothing to say, and it's in complete denial of the fact that it has nothing to say. Nothing interesting to say, at least. That violence is bad, revenge is bad. Well, good job, Neil. I learned that in elementary school. Can you tell something that's actually kind of interesting now?
That game, Abby and Lev literally only got out because they used violence. So,
Such a fucking... Like, seriously, those 2 minutes. Those 2 minutes, goddamn. There's so much shit.
I guess it's a good job I missed those 2 minutes.
No, well, we already described them to you. I will give it this just for the purpose of not giving credit. Like, not only was the set piece cool, it was visually stunning. Like, while I don't like the character models and animations of this game, like I've said, because they're such a step down from Uncharted 4, I will give it that the backgrounds are really good, and like I said, the burning village, while the game doesn't earn the visual potency of that background, it is a very... so I do commend the artists for doing a good job creating a visually potent set piece. So there's that.
and you know, the gameplay was pretty good during that segment. Or no, it finally started to break up the monotony of things.
It did. But, and now, ladies and gentlemen, in the next part, Abby returns to the aquarium. And we all know what happened at the end of Ellie's campaign, right? Ellie killed Owen and Mel. So now, ladies and gentlemen, in the next part, we return to the cliffhanger at the theater and finally find out what happens after that.
See you then.
See you then.
Yeah.
Yeah.